Hey everybody, welcome back from spring break. And I want to just very quickly, I'm going to have to talk fast, review everything that we've talked about the Civil War, like leading up to the Civil War to this point, because this week you are going to be really looking at and focusing on the specific battles of the Civil War. So, recap. 2 weeks before spring break, you focused on different abolitionist and different women's suffrage movement figures. The abolitionists were people who wanted to abolish. That word abolitionist comes from the word abolish. Abolitionists wanted to abolish slavery. The women's suffrage movement people were people who were working for women's rights, the right to vote, the right for free speech, because women weren't treated like men. That's just the way it was. So that's what we worked on 2 weeks prior to spring break. The week before spring break, you looked at very specific causes of the Civil War. So I actually have my notes because I don't want to leave anything out. I want to make sure that I cover everything that you looked at the week before spring break so that you're ready to jump into those battles. Okay. So obviously the biggest cause of the Civil War in America was slavery. You had most of your northern states who had lots of big factories and lots of industry, like machinery type things. And so they didn't really need a whole lot of manual labor. They didn't have a lot of slaves up there. But then your southern states, that's where all your farms were. And they needed a lot of hands on deck. They needed lots of manual labor. And so they had lots of slaves. Okay. So that was originally what split the country on slavery, was really their industries. You had the northern states that didn't need all that extra help. They had machines, but then you had the South who they really needed lots of people and they needed it cheap. And so they needed slaves. So slavery was probably the biggest issue that led to the Civil War. Okay. The Underground Railroad came about where Harriet Tubman was sneaking slaves from one house to the next during the night to get them out of slavery. And that's what the Underground Railroad was. Then you had lots of battles over slave states versus free states. And this is where a lot of the started coming in, like, rah, 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 well, you said this, well, you said that. So one of the very first compromises that they tried to make was the Missouri Compromise. And that one said that Missouri could be a slave state, but that Maine would be a free state. Okay. Then they drew an invisible line, basically splitting the North and the South. And they said, okay, everybody from to the south of this line can have slaves. Everybody north of this line cannot have slaves. Okay, fine. That's great. But then came another compromise called popular sovereignty. And basically that said, it really doesn't matter where your state is, whether you're above the line or below the line. If your state's majority wants slaves or does not want slaves, that's what will determine slave versus free state. And that was fine with some, but not okay with some, because some were like, wait a second, you said in the Missouri Compromise that this line would determine slaves below the line, no slaves above the line. And now you've come back and you've changed it. Then they came back with another thing that was called the Fugitive Slave Law. And that basically said it doesn't matter if you're a free state or a slave state. If you see a runaway slave, you are required by law to return that slave back to their owner, whether you're a slave state or a free state. Made them really mad. Then came the KansasNebraska Act, which said that Nebraska and Kansas territories would be given that popular sovereignty, and it didn't matter about that invisible line from the Missouri Compromise. So there were just so many different things that were like, well, wait, you said this. Well, wait, you said that. Blah, 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 blah. My video is about to cut off, but I also need to talk to you about two more things, so I'll make another video.